The Puck Portfolio with Andy McNeil.
Hey, welcome to the Puck Portfolio for Tuesday, April. And joining me as always, DFO's Nick Martin. Nick, how you doing, man?
Doing great. Yeah, I'm excited to get into it today. Had a good weekend, and somehow my team has actually made the final after last night's game. So, yeah, doing good.
Fantasy you're talking about?
Oh no, sorry, my men's league team, but I actually am in the final in my main league as well for fantasy, and had a good start last night. Dustin Wolf put up a huge score for me, so good on that front too.
Right on. Yeah, the Blues, their 12-game win streak came to an end last night in Winnipeg. 3-1 win for the Winnipeg Jets. Looking a lot more likely that the Jets are going to win the President's Trophy this year. But the Capitals got what they wanted this weekend. Of course, Alexander Ovechkin breaking Wayne Gretzky's all-time goal-scoring record with the only goal in a loss to the Islanders. So thoughts on that? Was it as magical as you hoped it would be?
Yeah, it was pretty magical. I was pumped. I was 10 out of 10 hungover sitting on the couch. So happy I got it together to enjoy it. But yeah, it was pretty unreal. I think I feel like everything about it has been, covered enough. But the one thing that I'm really interested to see as a Caps fan here moving forward is what the pushback is going to be from the team. I don't really think that, the chase was a distraction for a while there, but I do think the very last couple games there, it was just completely the focus. And now it feels like it's all business once again. So I'm really hoping that they can start to play better, because it obviously got pretty bad there. The Islanders game was pretty awful aside from that. And the Blackhawks game wasn't much better. So yeah, I'm hoping that coming off some rest this week and getting that over with, they can start to, really focus on the playoffs and playing a good team game again.
Yeah, Capitals currently on a 3-day break. They trail the Winnipeg Jets by 3 points in the race for the President's Trophy. The Jets, of course, the Capitals have a game in hand on the Jets. The Dallas Stars aren't far behind either with 105 points. Yeah, kind of getting interesting here as far as the President's Trophy race is concerned. Big 10-game slate in the NHL today. Let's start with the Maple Leafs and the Panthers, because I know you covered that game over at the Leafs Nation. Some big news kind of going both ways for the Florida Panthers here, with Sam Bennett expected to miss the remainder of the regular season. Apparently he'll be good to go for the playoffs. But they are getting Selke favorite Alexander Barkov back in the lineup.
Yeah, they are. And the lines have moved a ton. If anything, I'm starting to get a little interested in Toronto as a side. They're at plus 145. That's getting close to right where I'd say I'd pull the trigger. These teams met last week. The Leafs won 3-2. Toronto had about every advantage you could possibly think of in that game, given who was out of the lineup for the Panthers. They were playing 3 and 4 and back-to-back. So I don't know if that necessarily shows that the Leafs are ready to best them in the playoffs or not, but I think they're a little closer than this number currently suggests. So yeah, the Leafs would be my lean in terms of a side. I think the notion that Florida's tanked here is a little absurd. I think that if anything, yeah, they're playing it passively with their guys that are dinged up but why wouldn't they? Even Leafs fans are debating if they want to win the division based on who the matchup will be. I don't think they're that pumped on playing Ottawa. So given that you can't even tell for sure which seed's going to ultimately be the best one, and as we'll get into in 10 days, home ice has been quite irrelevant in the playoffs. It's always an overhyped narrative. I pointed out all the stats prior to last postseason. We'll definitely get into them again. And then last season, road teams had one of their best playoffs ever. So I think that with all that in mind, it's not that surprising to see that the Panthers are just deciding to be safe with all these guys who, are obviously dealing with some nagging injuries. So I definitely don't think Florida's tanking. I think that to some extent they've fallen off because of how Seth Jones has been playing, which we've talked about a lot. The top pairing is out of all Panthers defense pairings that have played 100 minutes together this year, none of them have fared worse than Jones and Forsling have, which is pretty crazy when you consider where Forsling is typically, or basically how that pairing's always done. So I do think that's been part of the drop off. And then, as you've talked about it, the other part of the drop off has been Spencer Knight was playing great for the Panthers this year. He'd been a really good backup. Vanacek's been awful. He's 1-3-1, 880 save percentage. So I think those two factors, they don't have to be tanking, but they are two things that have hurt them. Obviously, the Vanacek one's not likely to be overly relevant come the playoffs, but I do think they're both noteworthy. And I do have a play on this game. I like the under 5.5 at -110. I think it's a good bet. I feel like we'll see this game look pretty comparable to last week's matchup. I think even though the Leafs haven't shown too well defensively, I still feel like this is what Berube was brought in to help clean up. The Carlo pairing has started to fare a lot better. I might potentially have been a little hard on Carlo because he's starting to play pretty well with the Leafs. He's found his game, and I think they're looking a little better defensively. So I think this should be a pretty tight checking one. I feel like that's a good bet. And on a more general note, scoring's been down a lot over the last week. We'll see if that trend holds this week, but goal scoring was down significantly. A middle of the pack team over the last week is averaging 2.67 goals. That would be 28th over the entirety of the season. So small sample, but I do think there's some logic, obviously, in thinking that teams are kind of shoring up for the playoffs here. So yeah, I don't think it's a bad time to bet unders at all, and I think it's a good game to tap into that trend here.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, the Atlantic Division standings, just 8 points separating the top four teams, the Maple Leafs, Lightning, Panthers, and Senators right now in the Atlantic Division. So a pretty tight race here. And yeah, Florida, if they don't get their act together here to close out the season, they could realistically fall into that first wild card spot, and the Senators could end up meeting the Lightning.
And I do
In
think the
round
Lightning
one.
are the best. We've talked about that. I think it's
Yeah.
gaining some traction, but I think right now that's the most well-rounded of all those teams.
Yeah, I agree, and I mean the Lightning are still in the running to finish first in the Atlantic Division. So lots to figure out here over the next handful of games. Less than that for some teams, but yeah, it makes things interesting on both sides of the standings. Next up, we've got I think I haven't pulled the trigger yet. I've considered it because I've seen some prices up there in the plus 200 range and above. Might have come down a little bit now, but I think this is a winnable game for the Boston Bruins against the New Jersey Devils. I don't think the Devils, obviously, they've been on a little bit of a run the last handful of games, but their 5-on-5 numbers are pretty dreadful over the last month and change, and it's been that way for quite some time now, and it's only gotten worse without Jack Hughes and Dougie Hamilton in the lineup. So I really do think this is a winnable game for the Boston Bruins. I'm hoping they don't win it because their place in the standings is looking pretty good right now. Currently in the fourth draft pick position, tied with the Philadelphia Flyers in points, but the Flyers have a game in hand, so they are ahead of the Bruins in the standings right now due to that. So I'm hoping, if anything, I'm hoping Boston can hang around in that bottom five and get a good draft pick. But yeah, I'm a little bit surprised by this price. I know the Bruins have been bad, worst expected goals percentage in the NHL, around 39% over the last month or more, and yeah, they've looked really bad, but. I don't know. They've been trying to win games. Obviously, they broke that 10-game losing streak against the Carolina Hurricanes with a big win. They came back the next day, and they weren't laying down versus the Buffalo Sabres by any means. They were trying to win that game, but lost 6-3 after blowing a multi-goal lead. So I mean, I don't think the Bruins are giving up by any means. Although I'm sure that they know they're out of it. But yeah, that's one that I'm going to be considering as the day goes on here. Boston to win on the money line against the New Jersey Devils. But I do have a play in the Senators and the Blue Jackets game. I'm going with Drake Batherson to score an anytime goal at, let me just double check here. I think it is plus 235 that I locked this in at. Yeah, plus 235 anytime goal for Drake Batherson. With Tkachuk out of the lineup, I mean, he's doubtful to play for this versus the Blue Jackets here today. I don't think that has changed. I'm not seeing anything right now. So, with him out of the lineup, he's the top shot producer for the Senators. Has been that way for a long time. But after that, I mean, aside from Jake Sanderson, who's on the blue line, the next best forward when you look at shot generators is Drake Batherson as of late. So I think he's going to have a big night here versus Columbus, who's been the worst defensive team in the NHL over the last couple of months here. And I just think this is going to be a good spot for Sanderson, not only to get shots on goal, but hopefully light the lamp here too. And I think plus 235 is a pretty juicy price. I guess let's talk about the Blue Jackets just for a minute. Kind of disappointing, to see them fall out of it. I think it would have been a fun story for them to get in, but man, they have just totally fallen apart since the beginning of March. Just 4 wins, since March 4th. And they're currently on a 3-game losing streak, back-to-back shutouts. They've gotten shut out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times since March 6th. I mean, that's incredible, right? Like, this is a team that has been pretty good in terms of shot generation, and just can't find a way to find the back of the net here. 5-0 loss against the Toronto Maple Leafs, a 4-0 loss against the Ottawa Senators, and now they're going to play the Senators at home after visiting the Sens in Ottawa on Sunday. So, disappointing to say the least to see Columbus kind of wilt like they have.
Yeah, I do think offensively they've been getting it going. They've been better here and there. They've mixed in those shutouts versus the Leafs and Senators there, but they were doing a little better on that front. The goaltending is just absolutely crushing them, though. And like you said, their chance generation numbers are pretty good. They're in the upper half of the league during that span, but they are getting they've had an .869 save percentage since March 4th. So not going to win many games with that. And especially because they're not defending overly well either. They are still right at the bottom of the league in terms of quality chances against in that span. So pretty horrible combination when you have that kind of goaltending and you're not defending overly well. So, I like this look. I'm kind of getting tempted as I see that Bet365 is hanging the over 6 at -115. And with Forsberg set to start, I think that's a pretty decent look. Allmark's been pretty unreal in a lot of the recent Sens wins. So I think we could see the Blue Jackets find a little bit of offense tonight, but feels hard to imagine Merzlikins shutting down the Senators entirely. He has been horrible, and they're not in a very good spot. And that contract also is actually, he's specifically bad if you look at how he's faring against goaltenders with any sort of a meaningful contract, because he's been one of the absolute worst in the league this year. And there's not many guys in his cohort that's been comparably bad that have a long-term deal or kind of a meaningful salary at all. So, a bit of a problem there for the Blue Jackets moving forward.
Up next, we've got the Chicago Blackhawks in Pittsburgh taking on the Penguins. And one thing that stands out to me about the Penguins as of late, I mean, bottom 3 in shots against. Surprisingly, the top spot, or bottom spot, I should say, goes to the Dallas Stars here over the last month since going back to March 8th. But the Penguins not doing a very good job suppressing shots here. And they're gonna face a Blackhawks team that is might be up for this game. And you like the Blackhawks on the money line?
Yeah, I do. I think plus 180 is a pretty good number. I think the Blackhawks have looked up for all their recent games. I was impressed with how they played the Caps on Friday night. And I think there's some, cause for optimism in the lineup right now. They've got a better looking defensive core. I think Korchinski's a player that should have been there all year, but obviously they're, handling their development as they are. Levshinov's been decent. And then I thought that every time I've watched them recently, I think Frank Nazar's looked excellent. And Oliver Moore's looked good since he got in there. So we'll see if that holds over a larger sample. But they've got, some young guys, college guys up there right now that I think are excited to be in the mix after not playing with the team earlier. So I think that, I definitely don't think they're lacking motivation or just playing out the stretch. I think they've got a lot of guys who still feel like they have a lot to prove this season. And you talked about it. The Penguins, they've been somewhat respectable in terms of their underlying numbers recently. I think that has obviously led to them being overvalued a lot over the last 2 years. But they're getting, hit or miss goaltending. Still seems like they're giving up a lot of turnovers in the worst areas of the ice. So yeah, I think Chicago can definitely make this game competitive. I think it's not a bad time to back them. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the plus 180 price tag on the Blackhawks.
Yeah, and I'm going to lock in Connor Bedard over 2.5 shots on goal at plus 120. Still the top shot generator for the Blackhawks here. He had 3 shots in his last game versus the Penguins. And I think this is a good spot at plus 120. So I'm going to lock that in at Bet365. Currently the best price out there on this prop. So,
Nice. Yeah, I think I like the way they're skating that top line right now, too. I think obviously Bedard's been a problem this year, but his line combinations have been absurd at times. And right now it looks like he's going to stick with Mikheyev and Donato, who've both been playing really well. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good time to back that prop as well.
Yeah, and I did skip over another play that I had here. It is the in the Devils and Bruins game. I like Timo Meyer to go over 3.5 shots on goal at plus 140. I think this is a great price facing a Bruins team that's given up a ton lately, and Meyer has been pretty consistent. 7 of his last 12 games, he's managed 4 shots or more. So I think plus 140 is a pretty good price for this player in this matchup.
Yeah, I like it. Myers, yeah, he's been excellent. That's been one of the big reasons the Devils are getting it going. And I'm right with you. I do kind of think the Bruins can make this a game. I still feel like, the Devils' offensive upside is pretty capped. And I don't think the Bruins have quit. So I was frustrated having bet them in Montreal the other night, but I think I might end up on this one as well.
Yeah. Where are we going to next?
What is my
Canucks Stars, Islanders Preds. Where are you at?
Let's go. Oh yeah, Islanders Preds. I don't think it's the funnest game ever, but I like the play I have there, and it's I think Horvat anytime goal plus 180 is a good look. His play continues to stand out. I think the Islanders, they're not completely out of it yet. I don't think we'll see them quit in this game. I think they're actually even a decent bet in terms of a side, but Horvat plus 180 stood out to me. He's been really effective recently, getting a ton of chances, playing big minutes, and the Predators continue to be one of the worst defensive sides. Maybe not the worst, that might be a bit of a stretch, but they're not getting great goaltending, and they're still quite hit or miss defensively. So I think it's a good spot to go with a hot goal scorer in Horvat at plus 180.
Yeah, and while the Preds have had some, pretty good underlying metrics this year, they have kind of dropped off over the last 15 games or so. They're not looking as great. Kind of looks like they have, they've been eliminated officially from the playoffs, which we knew was going to happen. But it looks like they're playing like it now. Like they're just playing out the season here. So I think this is a good spot for the Islanders and their scorers. So yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like some of these teams, like the composition matters a little bit. Like the Predators have a lot of veteran guys that I feel like it's easy to just pick whatever. We've got not a lot to prove at the NHL level. We have spots next year. Like it is what it is compared to some of these teams that are maybe, catching teams off guard a little bit
like
here.
Flyers or
exactly.
the Sabres.
Even the Kraken, I think they've still got a lot of guys fighting for jobs. They've been playing really well recently. But it seems like the Preds are very much in the group of teams that's just playing out the stretch.
So I mentioned the Dallas Stars and their poor defensive metrics as of late. We've talked about Dallas quite a bit on this show and just how they've, sort of been experiencing a downturn here and probably aren't playing that great when you consider who their likely first round opponent is going to be. Not a great way to go into the postseason here. Big favorite versus the Canucks tonight. You got any interest in this game?
Yeah, I'd like Brock Besser to record 3 shots at plus 150. He's been really good recently. He's been hitting this almost nightly. And, this is could be his last stretch with the Canucks here. And he's been very good during this little push for the playoffs. Top line's been good. Obviously, the Canucks are pretty shorthanded with Hedl and Pettersson both out of the lineup. So I think they're just going to keep playing big minutes. I'm kind of surprised this number's moved this much from where it was. It was plus 110 when I articled to play it versus Anaheim on Saturday. Obviously, the Stars aren't Anaheim, but like you said, they have also not been defending remotely good recently. and they're getting by with just really good goaltending and elite offensive play. So, and I think the important thing is I don't know if I buy into that Stars defense core much right now. Like, they're probably not as bad defensively as they've shown recently. I think it's kind of easy to play that way when you're finding ways to win, but I do think that this isn't the complete defensive juggernaut we saw last season. So it'll be interesting to see, how it looks getting into it. And I feel like a lot of people are always a little against the underlying numbers, but even last year, if you look at it, expected goals against per 60 was a huge indicator of playoff success. 3 of the 4 conference finalists finished top 6 in that metric last season, and I think it was 6 of the final 8 were top 12. So it definitely did play a pretty good role in indicating success last season. If you're looking at it this year, the Stars have the 7th worst expected goals against per 60 over the last month. So not been good. It's definitely been, and I think watching them, it's looked pretty bad. The games I've paid attention to, there's been a few wins that have been pretty shocking, even both over the Kraken, that the win in Edmonton where we had them, and then the next night they got pounded by the Flames. So yeah, I think it's looked concerning, and I think given that Besser's up to plus 150, kind of mainly probably based around the perception that this is a tough matchup, I think that's a pretty great number.
Yeah, and one final game for to discuss here for tonight. A big one between the Golden Knights and the Colorado Avalanche. These two teams haven't met in months. I mean, they met in the season opener with Vegas winning that one 8-4. Of course, Colorado was in that ugly stretch to begin the season. They responded with a 2-1 shootout victory on November 27th. But on Tuesday, they're going to meet for the final time in the regular season. And the Avalanche have won 6 of the last 10 matchups in this series. Vegas, they had their 6-game win streak snap, but they've started a new one, looking for their 3rd win in a row here as they close out a 3-game road trip here on Tuesday in Colorado. They've won 8 of their last 10 games. They hold a 5-point lead over the Los Angeles Kings for top spot in the Pacific Division. So it's good that they've stayed hot, at least from their perspective, because the Kings have been, one of the hottest, if not the hottest teams in the league over the last little bit. Vegas, I mean, one thing that stands out to me is just how deadly they've been on the man advantage this year. They've got the best power play percentage this season, 29.71%. But they've been really effective, since the calendar flipped over to 2025. They've converted on 34.5% of their power play opportunities since January 1st. And they've been, I think, even better in February and March and heading into April here. So that's a big part of their success, ranking 9th in goals per 60 minutes in all situations. They've been pretty lousy on the penalty kill, though, just 76.1% penalty kill percentage this season right now. But they've been playing pretty good over the last month and change. I mean, all season really, but especially well as of late. They rank 2nd in expected goal share and 9th in shot attempt share at 5-on-5 according to Evolving Hockey. Still don't have Thomas Hertl. He's missed the last 7 games due to injury. Returned to practice last week in a red non-contact jersey, but it's still unclear when he's going to return to the lineup. He's currently listed day to day. I wasn't able to find any, recent reports on him, anything more than 4 or 5 days ago. So still kind of waiting to see what's happening with him. The Golden Knights are going to have a 1-day rest advantage, they're at a one. The Avs have a 1-day rest advantage in this game. Kind of got tongue tied there. It's the 3rd game in 4 days for the Vegas Golden Knights. Colorado has had 2 days off, and so far home teams have won 59% of the games in which they have more rest than the road team. So definitely not insignificant, especially at this point in the season. The Avalanche, they've also been one of the hottest teams in the league since the end of February. I believe they're 13-3-2 since then, but they have dropped 3 of their last 5, and the injury bug has hit the team here. Haven't saw any updates yet this morning on Martin Necas or Jonathan Drouin. Have you?
I hadn't. Yeah, the Necas one did not look good when it happened live. He finished the game, he tipped in that goal, 20 seconds left, which was kind of surprising, but then popped up on the injured list after that. So yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
see any update there either. I was also
I did
kind of
I did see in the report that they aren't too worried about it. I think it's I guess he got some sort of, they're optimistic that he'll be back here in short order. So I don't think it's anything
yeah, and
that's really going to be long term.
they're playing for next to nothing. If you look at
Yeah.
the standings, they're probably they basically can't move. They're 5 points ahead of the Blues here, 7
Yeah.
points back of the Stars, so they're pretty much penciled into that 3rd spot in the division there. So yeah, obviously a lot of reason to play it safe if they think it's going to be, helpful at all.
Yeah. Natchez and Druin have missed the last 2 games. Both are listed as day to day right now. Josh Manson and Samuel Gerard also listed day to day right now. So several injuries to deal with for the Avalanche. Colorado, they rank 5th in expected goals percentage and 4th in shot attempt percentage at 5-on-5 since March 1st. No team has scored more goals per 60 minutes than Colorado in that span. And only one team has allowed fewer goals in all situations. I mean, even in those 2 games that they've played without Natchez and Druin, they still managed to put up 11 combined goals. So, they're all right. I like Val Nichushkin here. He hasn't scored, or he's scored 1 goal in his last 9 games, but he's seen a big increase in his ice time. He's up there playing, the uh, at a high around 24 minutes. Still getting 20, 21 minutes a night, as opposed to the 16, 17 that he was getting previously. He's up there on the top line with Nathan McKinnon. He's on the top power play. And he's registered 30 shots on goal in those 9 games. So it's only a matter of time before he gets things done here. And I think plus 175 is a good spot or a good price for him in a matchup that I don't expect to be high scoring by any means, but I think he is going to be one of the go-to guys here tonight for the Avalanche, and plus 175 is a pretty juicy price.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that is a lot of shots for him. And he's finished at a pretty high rate in his career. He's a career
Yeah.
11.7% shooter, 17% this year, 17.7% last year. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I like that look as well.
That pretty much does it for today's episode of the Puck Portfolio. Anything you've looked forward to tomorrow? Get out ahead of it.
No, I hadn't looked at it for tomorrow. I was still kind of hung up getting through the rest of this slate.
For sure.
So
Yeah. Big slate.
it's huge. Yeah. So there wasn't anything too much. Yeah. So we'll see. I think I'll definitely add a few more plays to my action profile. So keep your eyes posted for that. It looks like the Leafs have just come down, unfortunately, because that was kind of the one that I was starting to really hum and haw and think about getting into. It's come down to plus 136, unfortunately, which kind of makes sense. I was kind of surprised that the Wall news and Barkov news moved that price as much as it did.
Yeah, no, that is. I was a bit surprised here when I saw that price as well. But yeah, that wraps it up the show for Tuesday. We will be back on Wednesday right here on the DFO Fantasy and Betting YouTube channel. Until then, good luck with your bets and gamble responsibly.